the colony that vanished without a trace. In the summer of 1587, more than 100 English men, women, and children landed on a small island off the coast of what is now North Carolina. They hoped to build a permanent settlement in the New World. Their leader, John White, named the colony after the island, Roanoke. What happened next became one of history's greatest mysteries. The settlers struggled almost immediately. Food was scarce, relations with some local indigenous groups were uncertain, and they desperately needed supplies. White sailed back to England to gather help, intending to return within months. History had other plans. England soon found itself at war with Spain. Most ships were pressed into military service to defend against the Spanish Armada. White was stranded in England for 3 years. When he finally returned in 1590, he found the colony deserted. There were no bodies, no signs of battle, no burned buildings. The houses had been carefully dismantled, as if the settlers had packed up and left willingly. One clue remained. Carved into a wooden fence was a single word: Croatoan. Nearby, the letters Crow had been carved into a tree. White had previously agreed with the settlers that if they were forced to leave, they would carve their destination into a tree or post. If they left under attack, they would add a Maltese cross. There was no cross. The word, Croatoan, referred to a nearby island, today known as Hatteras Island, and to an indigenous people who lived there. Unfortunately, storms prevented White from sailing there to investigate. He was forced to return to England, never learning what became of his family, including his granddaughter Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. For centuries, theories multiplied. Some believed the colonists had been massacred. Others imagined supernatural forces or secret conspiracies. Modern historians, however, think the answer is probably less mysterious. Archaeological discoveries suggest that at least some of the settlers may have joined friendly indigenous communities, particularly the Croatoan people. European-style tools, weapons, and pottery have been found at indigenous sites, while records from later English explorers mention native communities with people who appeared to have European ancestry. Other evidence hints that some colonists may have moved inland to survive after famine and isolation made the original settlement impossible to maintain. No single piece of evidence proves exactly what happened, and no complete list of the settlers has ever been found after White's departure. The lost colony of Roanoke remains unsolved, not because everyone disappeared into thin air, but because the surviving records are incomplete, and time erased much of the evidence. The mystery endures not because there were no clues, but because there were just enough to leave history with questions instead of answers. Sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't about impossible disappearances. They're about ordinary people who made desperate choices, and vanished into history before anyone could record where they went.